See who's in the house. Gail, Julia. And I can see we are all getting in. It's 5:58. Welcome to everyone joining us. If you're not muted, I ask that you please mute yourselves. All right. Welcome, everyone. My name is Chris Jones with Warhol and Wall Street, here representing all of our teams in the Link Us initiative, as well as our East to West corridor, what we're here to talk about today. These are our Learn and Inspire sessions. We had a session earlier today, and we hope to have many more people join us. I know some are tuning in on Facebook, and we will be checking comments there as well. A little bit of housekeeping. Our chats, we welcome your comments and chats. We have a member on our team who are gathering those comments as you leave them, so you may not see them in the chat section, but we will have a section later where we can give you some dedicated time to your questions. We'll have many more touch bases. We want to make this an engaging, learn and inspire session for you. So we'll be asking you some questions and engaging you in a couple of different ways along the way. So we look forward to that, and let's get started. Thank you. So to get us level set for today, we're going to start with some introductions. Then we'll talk about the Link Us brand overall and the initiative. Then we'll dive into our east-west corridor overview, some of our project goals, transit mode recommendations, reimagining some of our corridor changes, and next steps. And before we go on to the next slide, I want to say that as we go from east to west and we think about reimagining our city through transit and through the ancillary and other combinations around that represent your neighborhoods, really participate, really soak in this information and give that feedback because together we will be a part of that change, and we will be a part of what happens next as it relates to transit. So we could go on and to the next slide. Again, I am Chris Jones. I will be your host per se throughout this evening. Julius Supra will be will have a part and is our ACOM project manager, along with Gavin Poindexter. Gail Saunders will lead us through the Link Us initiative, and Zachary Sunderland is our CODA project manager and will talk us through a lot of our corridors, particulars, and areas of interest for all of us. Now, we wanted to leave some space for a member of our team who passed away at the end of last year, Danny Paulmore. For many of you who knew her, she was a woman for all seasons. She was instrumental to many of us and many of you as it related to building our diversity, giving voice to all members in our communities at all levels. And I'm pretty sure that many have felt her warmth, felt her comfort, and felt her ability to bring everyone together. So we want to leave that space, and we honor her in the work that she's been able to do in Columbus. A little more housekeeping. We are on Zoom, so please mute yourself if you are not already, but participants are muted. If you have any questions, please feel to ask them in the chat again. Those will filter up to a question base where we will ask some of our top questions. But again, we will have many more opportunities, including our co-create sessions coming up starting next week, as well as potential FAQs to make sure that we get to all of your questions that we may or may not address tonight. And again, you can leave the meeting by pressing the exit. We want you to interact with us. So we're using a tool called Mentimeter. It's really easy to use, 3 simple steps. And the first one is just grab your phone or open another browser on your computer. Then go to www.menti.com, MENTI. Enter the code 3772490. I also want to leave a note on subtitles before we do this question. For some of you, they may pop up, but if not, look at the bottom of your screen right next to, if you have the controls. If you have a live transcript button, just click it and click view subtitles if those are not present for you, and we can help with that. So for Menti, describe transportation and moving around Columbus in one word. Again, menti.com, code 3772490. Give you a little time to respond. See if our answers will pop up or not. And we are on Zoom, everyone. So as with all things, sometimes we may have a couple of delays due to technology, but we'll roll through those and work with each other. In the meantime, in the chat, if you would, and I'll repeat some of these responses that are received, but if you wouldn't mind giving some of those words, I'm pretty sure our mentee will be right back up. There we go. Easy. So some of you say slow, some say car-centered and boring. I've got some exciting in there, so that is exciting. Solitary, easy, varied, broken, incomplete, congested. So I've got a lot of, opportunity in here, but I've also got some exciting. So with that, we want to introduce our overall Link Us initiative, and Gail will take us through that to let you know just overall about what we're trying to bring to Columbus together, and then we'll dive into how you can be a part of that.
Thank you so much, Chris, and good evening, everyone. We're very happy to be able to join you this evening and very proud to be part of this initiative. I am Gail Saunders. I am with the Saunders PR Group, but part of the team leading the Link Us communications, and really excited to be with the East-West team this evening. Give you an overview of Link Us, just a high-level overview to talk about what this initiative is for Central Ohio. As you know, Central Ohio is growing in so many significant ways. And if you follow the reports, you know that we are slated to go from 2 million people to 3 million people by 2050. And that is significant change, significant growth, and that also impacts our land development. And so as we think about Link Us, we really want to move this initiative in a way that helps us understand the choices that we have to make as a community. And so if we go to the next slide, those choices will certainly help us shape our lives. They will help shape our economy, and of course, our place. And when we talk about our place, we're talking about the development in our communities and in our neighborhoods. And that's what Link Us is about. Tonight, we're going to focus on the East-West community. And what we're talking about are opportunities that are unlike any that we've ever had. We have an opportunity to really transform Central Ohio in a way that takes into account not only how we move from a transit perspective, but in so many other ways. And so we think about the choices we make. We also think about land development patterns and what that means for us. And so we have an opportunity to really be bold in our thinking, to be visionary and looking forward to what we can make Columbus even better than it is today. But all that requires us to work together. It requires us to collaborate in ways that we've not collaborated before, in ways that really help us drive to a commitment that we're going to be in it together for the long haul. And so when we think about Link Us, it is a collaboration between Morpsey, CODA, Franklin County, and the city of Columbus. And so driven by those lead partners, Link Us is our transformational and comprehensive prosperity and mobility initiative. It takes into account so many things. One of the most important things is we want to make sure that we're providing equitable mobility options for all of our residents. And we want to think about those visitors who come to our great city as well. We want to ensure that we are offering access to jobs and affordable housing as we develop these corridors and we think about the development. And of course, economic growth and sustainability are very critical to the work that we're doing and to this program. And so when we think about that deeper, we know that we're building this program on a great legacy of foundation work, from the Insight 2050 work by Morpsey, Next Gen by CODA, and the corridor concepts. Link Us really is about taking the foundation of what we've learned from all of those transportation initiatives, and then broadening that out to be more comprehensive and take into account so many other things that we'll talk about in just a moment. And so as we talk about Link Us and moving our region forward, we really want to focus on things that are very innovative in our approach and how we think about this. So high capacity and high frequency rapid transit is certainly key to all that we're talking about. But that also means that we need to think about all those other things that feed into that: our bikeways, our green space, roadways, pedestrian improvements, those sidewalks that so many people talk about and ask us about as well, zoning, and development along those key regional corridors that link us is all about. And so when we think about the development and those corridors, we're really focusing on our work on key goals. And these goals are driving everything that we do from our decision making: equity, bottom line, top of line, and in between. It really drives our work. We think about workforce advancement. We want to make sure that we can get people from point A to point B in their work, but we also want to make sure that we are providing opportunities for people to enhance where they are currently in their work and careers, to get those higher paying jobs and to really be able to support their families in even bigger ways. Innovation, we'll talk about that a little later. You'll hear from the experts in that space. Economic development, we already talked about that, but this really is an economic driver, and we want to make sure that we're keeping that top of mind as well. When we talk about affordability, we're not only talking about affordability from a transit perspective, from a transportation perspective, but we really are focused on thinking about housing and how the work that we are doing in these corridors really take into account how we bring about affordable housing every step of the way. And then sustainability, you know what that means. Not only what we do today, but we have to think about what we do tomorrow and how that impacts our future 20 years down the road. And so we're very proud of the work that we're embarking upon, as Chris mentioned earlier. And our work really does center around a core group of corridors throughout Central Ohio. And you can see from the Northwest North Airport, the corridors that have been part of those studies every step of the way. Right now, we're focused on two. There are two corridors that are currently in play, and those two corridors are the Northwest Corridor, which many of you may have been part of those stakeholder meetings. It started a little earlier, so it's a little further along the way in its planning and engagement. And now we're talking about the East-West Corridor. That's what tonight is all about. It really is about sharing where we are, but also getting your questions and your input. And so as we move forward with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Chris, who has another engagement opportunity for us tonight. Chris?
Yes, thanks so much, Gail. Pull those phones back out, and you're already doing it. So how do you typically travel to home or work? Remember using Menti on your browser or on your phone. And also feel free to use the chat to submit any questions that you have along the way. We want to remind you of that so we can consolidate those and make sure to address them. Car, bus, any new ones coming in? Rideshare and carpooling. So our main ways. All right. With that, I want to introduce Julius Supra, who will take us through our East-West corridor alignment.
Great, thank you, Chris, and thank you to everyone who's taken time out of your evening to come spend it with us. My name is Julius Supra. I'm with AECom, and I'm the project manager on the consultant side. And just wanted to give you an overview of this East-West corridor that we're going to be talking about this evening. So this is a long corridor. It's 20 miles long from east to west, and includes a diversity of different kinds of communities along that corridor. So what we're going to be working through as part of this process, and what we're going to be looking for your help on, is what advanced rapid transit investments can we look at that will knit all of these different communities together. So we're sort of at the beginning of that process now. And we really want to get input from you as we start this process. And then we'll be having subsequent touch points with you over the course of the project. So as you'll see on the next slide here, we have a little bit more detail about what this alignment actually looks like. So on the western side, starting out in Prairie Township, we'll continue east down Broad Street into downtown Columbus. as we go through downtown Columbus, there's a couple of different alignment options that we'll be looking at. So that's one of the decision points that we'll have over the course of this project. And one thing that's important to note is that we are working and coordinating with the Northwest Corridor team to make sure that our recommendations work well together, since we understand that this is part of the broader Link-US network. So we're not doing anything in a silo. As we head eastward out of downtown, there's two different alignment options. The first is on Broad Street, which stretches out to Jefferson Township. And the second is Main Street out to Reynoldsburg. So another decision point for us will be deciding which of those that we want to make the significant capital investments in. So to help guide us through this decision making, we've laid out a process that is consistent with what the Federal Transit Administration uses when it's considering which capital projects to give funding to. So Federal Transit Administration is a critical partner in funding any capital investment across the country, and they use a number of very specific metrics and calculations to decide which projects they're going to give that funding to. So this process will help us to identify an investment that is both responsive to local needs within the East-West Corridor and Columbus region itself, while at the same time setting up the selected project to be really competitive to attract that federal funding, because attracting that funding is going to be critical to moving us towards implementation, which is what we're all focused on. So tonight we're going to be reviewing the purpose and need and the initial screening. So those steps we've completed. We started back in October and are anticipating wrapping up this phase of work in June. So just showing you our kind of first chunk of work that we've done, get your feedback, listen to you and get input. Our next step is going to do to advance a more detailed definition, evaluation of alternatives before identifying what's called the locally preferred alternative. And that's a technical term that the Federal Transit Administration uses. It basically just means the project that we're going to take and submit for funding.
Now, what we're talking about, oh, sorry. Thank you so much, Julia. And what we're talking about is our neighborhoods, right? We're talking about all of you. So what neighborhood are you from? Let's see, bigger screen. Here we go. Linworth, Highland West. These are some of our answers coming in. Again, menti.com 3772490. And then they just need to refresh a little bit. I've got two questions. The first one is, what neighborhood are you from?
It might have jumped ahead, yeah, to the next one. You kind of blurred the two questions together.
Let's see. Well, let's tackle this one. What's your favorite attraction and destination along Broad and Main Streets? It's one of my favorite questions. What do you like along those corridors and along in your neighborhoods? I see downtown Bexley, Wyland Park, Franklin Park Conservatory. Bexley, Wyland Park, Coastside, the Columbus Museum. All excellent choices. Main Branch, I was wondering if that was gonna make it. Scioto, yes. Third Way Cafe, this is the second time that's come up, so that is my recommendation. Awesome. So, I mean, as you can see, along Broad or along Main Streets, there's so much to do. There's so much to experience in your neighborhoods. And, you know, transit should connect us, and it should connect us in safe ways. It should connect us in ways that aren't just about one mode of traffic, but ways that connect us. So with that, our goal with this Link-US Corridor East-West initiative, as well as the overall initiative, is to make sure that all of your voices are heard, you know, across this 20-mile area that we all occupy and that we all care about. So we wanted to share a video that highlights some of your community leaders or some community leaders and others who are asking you to be a part of our initiative together. But also, we hope that this leads to you wanting to be a part of our videos and just our content, and tell us why transportation matters in your neighborhood and in Columbus. And as that cues up, enjoy. We may need to get the audio in.
The city of Columbus, to me, just has a very collaborative approach to solving problems. The inclusive nature of Columbus and the ability to welcome new members in the community, that is the greatness. I'm one of those neighbors that I believe that my presence is going to make a contribution to my community. And so transportation is something we believe to be a thing that empowers those that live in our community to feel connected. And as they get opportunity, it helps them to say yes to things that they might not have always been able to say yes to. So for me, transportation becomes an opportunity to share space, inspire others, be adjacent to, and as we're adjacent to, we have to have feelings of care and connectedness. So to me, transportation can be another space that we grow more connected as a community.
The realization is there that more is needed and people are working to serve that need.
You either speak up or shut up. If you want change to take place, then you got to be part of the change.
I think it's really important for people to be involved in the future planning of Columbus, especially if you plan to be here. These are the times and the opportunities that we have to make our voice heard. I think the onus is on us to do that, especially if the door is open.
This is the time that all of the opinions of everyone to say what's going to help them have a better future. And so I would highly encourage everyone to take part in this, take it seriously, stay paying attention to it, because it's going to be a big deal.
If you don't speak today, and if you don't lift up your voice, then the Columbus that will be here in the future won't have the things that you're looking for. So speak up, share your voice, be a part of the new Columbus.
And as Malik said, speak up, share your voice, be a part of the new Columbus as it relates to transportation and our neighborhoods here, and the ways that we can control, which is how do we reimagine transportation from east to west here. So your voice matters. Our community survey is now available. You can visit linkuscolumbus.com/east-west for link to the survey, project and community engagement updates, or to reach out to us for more questions or suggestions. And that is at info@linkuscolumbus.com. So feel free to reach out, please engage, and please share the survey and get it throughout your neighborhoods. And with that, I turn it back over to Julia and Gavin, and they will take us through our project goals across Broad and Main Streets.
Great, thank you, Chris. So let's take a moment and think about why we are investigating doing this major transit investment within the East-West corridor. So on the next slide, we see some data that supports a point that Gail made earlier, and which you know well, I'm sure, is that Central Ohio is growing, and it's growing significantly. So since 2000, 450,000 new residents have moved to Columbus, and that number is expected to grow by 600,000 by 2050. So this region is growing quickly. So now is the time to be proactive and think about how you want to manage and focus that growth in a way that expands mobility and opportunity for everyone. So transit in particular is a really effective tool to help expand that mobility and access to opportunity. So As part of our work, as I mentioned before, one of the first steps is to establish the purpose and need for the investment. So we'll walk through the 5 need statements that we've developed. The first has to do with providing transit that carries more people with greater reliability, more frequent service with fewer stops, which results in shorter travel times. Basically, this means that we need to be efficiently and effectively connecting people with where they want to go. So if you're going to work, if you're going to the store, if you have to drop your kid off or pick up your kid from daycare, we want to make sure that transit is the best choice for you to get there and do that. For the second need, we also want to make sure that we're thinking about this transit investment within the broader transit network. So CODA already has a really strong underlying bus network. So how do we integrate this high capacity transit investment into the broader CODA network while at the same time looking at the broader Linkus network that Gail reviewed with that map earlier. So all of these pieces have to fit together as we work through the specifics of this corridor. Third, a lot of residents within Central Ohio do not have access to a car, so really rely on transit for their mobility. So we want to make sure that we are serving their needs and increasing access, as we see in number 4, access to employment, healthcare, and core services. And finally, we want to spur focused and compact infill and redevelopment along the corridor for sustainable growth. So again, this region just continues to grow. What do you want that growth to look like? And it's going to look different along the length of the corridor. This is not a one-size-fits-all approach. It's going to look different in Bexley than it does in Franklinton, than it does in downtown Columbus, and that's great. So we're going to work with the communities along the corridor to make sure that we are designing a transit investment that meets both transportation and transit needs, as well as broader community needs. I think that we have a question for you. Yes.
Ooh. So check all that apply. Upgraded fast transit options along Broad Street could give me better access to. All right, it's a race. So in the lead, events and festivals, as well as parks, museums, and other recreational areas. But really close is shopping and nightlife and dining. And then we have schools and more employment opportunities trailing, but maybe growing. No, I don't think so. So that's where we are. It looks like events, festivals, and other type of entertainment areas were our top options.
Thank you very much, Chris. One of the things that we're doing as part of our initial screening is we're really looking at what modes or best fit the east-west corridor. So next slide, please. So as part of our initial evaluation, we looked at 4 modes of transportation: bus rapid transit, light rail transit, modern streetcar, and commuter rail. Bus rapid transit is a rubber tired on concrete or asphalt alternative that generally has level boarding, off-board fare collection, real-time messaging, and just sort of gets enhanced stations. Light rail transit has a lot of those same elements, except it also, rather than rubber tires and pavement, it has steel wheels and tracks, and then typically has an overhead power source, or what we call catenary, which are the wires and stuff that go along the top. Modern streetcar is a lot like a light rail vehicle, except it generally is much shorter trips with closer station spacing, and generally operates in mixed traffic. I forgot to mention, going back, bus rapid transit can operate in both dedicated lanes and mixed traffic and transition relatively easily between those two, depending on the circumstances along a corridor. Light rail is generally in a dedicated lane and is more difficult to transition into mixed traffic if that's what's chosen. And then commuter rail is kind of a little bit different altogether. That's mode, it generally operates in either a freight rail corridor or a former freight rail corridor on freight rail tracks, and is really kind of designed for longer distance trips, kind of suburbs into a downtown, with station spacings more like 5 to 10 miles apart. And those vehicles are, they're compliant with freight safety things. And those are really targeted at commute-based trips, kind of that come in the morning, go out in the evening, hence the name Commuter Rail. And it is that primarily that suburb to downtown target for those. Next slide. So for our modal evaluation, we focused on 4 evaluation criteria: corridor fit, which is really looking at length of the how far those modes typically go, and then station spacing, how close together are they, and that really shapes and is reflective of the type of trips that are used in that corridor. And we ridership and capacity, and then the need or anticipated ridership in a corridor, capital cost per mile, operating cost per mile, and availability of right-of-way. And one of the things we were doing for this level of analysis, which is just our initial screening, we focused on kind of peers in around the country as our basis for those evaluations. Our evaluation revolved around a 4-level screening: best, good, fair, and poor. Can we go back one? Can we go back one? One of the important things that we need to remember as we're doing this is that what we need to focus on are those poor ratings. The poor ratings are things that we have we'll run into a problem implementing this project for that mode, because it's kind of a fatal flaw for this corridor. Going back, the best, good, and fair will kind of reset those, and it'll be even across the board going forward. So looking at that, we've got commuter rail, the corridor fit. As I mentioned, we were talking about commuter rail. That is really for longer distance trips, 40, 80 miles with station spacing of 5 to 10 miles, and is primarily in what that does is that doesn't fit the types of trips that are currently occurring in the east-west corridor. So that one we kind of gave a negative rating. Also, its operating cost per hour can be extremely high depending on the circumstances, and that is something that was one reason why it was taken out. And then similarly, right-of-way availability. As I mentioned, as we were talking about commuter rail, that requires to be in a freight rail corridor, and that isn't what is present in the east-west corridor. As we're looking at it, we don't want to be putting freight rail tracks down the middle of any of these roads, and just how that works. It's usually an existing freight rail corridor. Modern streetcar, again, the corridor fit, but this time for the opposite reason as commuter rail. It's typically about a 4-mile or less route with very close station spacing. So we got to kind of, that isn't, again, the types of trips that we're trying to serve or that we're seeing present in the east-west corridor. And ridership capacity, it does not provide the type of ridership capacity that we're anticipating we will need to serve the needs of the east-west corridor. Light rail transit, again here, ridership capacity, it was a problem, but this time it's the opposite. Light rail transit will be providing excess capacity or too much capacity for what we're going to be anticipating for the east-west corridor. And then that is kind of paired with the cost per mile part of it, in that as the costs are too high for the level of ridership that we're anticipating, and what we're going to have that excess capacity. So those two things kind of work together to kind of knock that one out. And then that leaves us with bus rapid transit, which generally serves corridors of about this length, the 20 miles. It kind of fits right into their sweet spot. Ridership capacity, again, it can be fairly flexible, but we're seeing that as, again, in that range of riders, even with growth in ridership in the corridor. And the cost per mile and the operating cost per hour, those are lower than some of the others and kind of reasonable. And then the right-of-way availability, BRT actually requires the least amount of right-of-way of any of these modes. So that is something that we are looking at positively, due to the fact that we only have so much right-of-way and we have to share it with other modes and other users of the public right-of-way. One of the reasons why BRT, some of the reasons why BRT is being recommended is that it is most competitive for federal funding in this corridor. It can be implemented quicker. It matches the anticipated ridership, consistent with local planning efforts, and is adaptable for emerging technology and mobility things going forward. Next slide. Some of you may be wondering why BRT is preferred and LRT is kind of taken out of the picture. That kind of focuses around some of the differences of the modes, and that BRT is more flexible to be adjusted to corridor characteristics. So we can kind of fit this into the existing community easier and a little bit better, and not disrupt the community that we're trying to serve as much. It can easily transition from mixed traffic to a dedicated guideway, and this is a key part of that transition, is we can have that fix and flexibility in parts of the corridor where the benefits and us kind of balance and go that way. LRT is significantly more expensive to construct and operate. It has a longer timeline to implement, and it requires higher ridership in order to support that level of investment than what we're anticipating for the east-west corridor. Next slide, please. Anticipated features of rapid transit: level boarding, multi-door entry, and off-board fare collection, which makes the multi-door boarding possible, a dedicated right-of-way or guideway, signal priority. And what this is, transit signal priority is typically, we would adjust the signal so that if a vehicle is coming, extend a green a few seconds or shorten a red a few seconds in order to make it so that the vehicle can hit that, go through that signal without stopping, and it works out. There would be limits on that. A modern vehicle design, both exterior and interior, provide frequent and more capacity service, enhanced stations, and adaptability. So we can change as new technology comes out. We can grow with that technology and try to implement and keep up the pace. I think as we're moving forward over the next few years, that we'll see transportation and the technology associated with that changing. Next. Julia, do you want to talk about?
Yeah, I will. Thank you, Gavin. Yes, so we're excited about BRT in the East-West corridor. And Columbus will be joining a whole host of cities across the country who have chosen to make this investment in a higher capacity transit, from the East Coast to the West Coast, small cities, big cities. It really is an ideal investment because it is so flexible and responsive to specific targeted locations along the corridor. So you can really change the design to respond to different communities, while at the same time really making that investment in a dedicated guideway to support that reliable, frequent, and faster service. And the other key point that Gavin mentioned is that it is flexible and adaptable to emerging technologies. So when you make an investment in rail, whether it's light rail, heavy rail, commuter rail, there's a lot of fixed infrastructure that's associated with that, from the rail to the overhead propulsion, which kind of locks you into that technology of today. Whereas BRT, operating that dedicated lane, gives you the opportunity to pivot and integrate technology as it emerges and matures in the marketplace. So this is really an investment in BRT today is an investment into the technology of tomorrow. So we have a couple examples of other cities that have made this investment. The first, many of you I'm sure are familiar with, in Cleveland. This was kind of the first generation BRT investment in the US. Subsequently, it's delivered more than $9.5 billion in economic development along the Euclid corridor. And we have seen, maybe not that high, but we've seen significant economic development associated with BRT in communities across the country. The second one we have is Richmond, Virginia. This is a much newer investment, recently opened, and they saw a 17% bump in transit ridership in the year that it was opened. So BRT is able to drive ridership increases in those communities across the country. So we're excited about continuing to work with you to design a BRT system that really matches the specific needs of the East-West corridor.
Thanks, Julia and Gavin. What aspects of rapid transit are most interesting to you? This is my question to the audience. Let's see. I may ride this instead of driving my car everywhere. Let's close captions out of my way. I can get to jobs, destinations more reliably. 50-50 so far. Okay. Seems like our top two choices so far. All right. And how interested are you in rapid transit? So we've already got some very interested but need more information. And you can visit us on our website. I believe it's in the chat, and take our survey and get much more information. Unsure, we hope to educate you and get you involved. Very interested is taking the lead. I like it. We're like 2/3 very interested and something that we can help with, which is more information and engagement. So I like where we're going. I do have some, I don't have any sweet. So there are no, I don't cares here, just some I'm unsures, and we're gonna convert you hopefully along the way. With that, I wanna bring in Zach, who's gonna take us through reimagining our corridor change.
Thanks, Chris. My name is Zach Starlin, project manager for CODA. Thanks for being here tonight. So really, successful rapid transit investments require closely coordinated development patterns to ensure residents and workers can easily use the system. So some of you might have participated in the Northwest Corridor public meetings last week. This is similar information. This is more for the Link Us initiative as a whole. And we're here to present this to you today. So the Link Us team is creating a set of transit supportive design principles to help guide design as development continues in the corridor. Consider these 4 principles as kind of the recipe for great places to make transit easier to use. So if you go to the next slide, building in blocks. Creating high quality walkable environments is key to supportive transit use. So a majority of our transit riders today access transit by walking to it. So in order to increase its usage, we need to enhance this to make it easier to create walkable environments. If you go to the next slide. Through our Northwest Corridor engagement within the past year, some of the results we've received and feedback is that they really want these corridors to get to open space and green space throughout the region. So they want open space to be included in new developments, as well as these corridors to be used to connect to those open spaces. And the next slide for streetscapes, we're really looking to make streetscapes a part of the open space as well. So here you can see in this picture, first story, commercial, restaurants, bars, residents, everything. So creating these as places instead of just sidewalks. And then lastly, for mobility on the next slide, we're really looking at all modes. We want to look at bicycle access, pedestrian access, scooter access, you name it. We want as many uses as you can to get to transit, as well as to use those type of mobility options for your daily trips as well. And then Chris, I think we are open for questions and answers.
That we are. So we have pulled some of our top questions, and we will address these and maybe add some if we get some time. And if we don't get time for any questions that we have, we will get that back out to you in a form of a FAQ or something of the like. Let's see, my first question, and with that, Zach, Julia, and Gavin will be helping me to answer these questions, and we'll field them as relevant. Will pedestrian walkways across West Broad be in scope for this project?
Yeah, so a big piece of this project is going to be looking at how we integrate active transportation components into it. It's important for a connectivity perspective, from a first last mile perspective. So as we move into the more detailed definition and evaluation phase, which is going to be happening in the next few months, we'll be developing some different designs, looking for input from the community as we look at different ways to make improvements to the whole transportation network, including sidewalks.
Thank you, Julia. What is the plan to replace street parking along the commercial corridors?
That is always a hot button issue when we work with communities to develop these types of investments. Again, that's going to be something that we're going to be looking at in detail in this next detailed definition evaluation phase. We understand that there are a lot of trade-offs that we're going to have to work with the community on, and that parking can be a really significant asset or requirement for businesses. So we'll be working with folks to understand their preferences and needs.
Awesome. And I hope that this person who asked this question is very involved and engaged in everything that we have coming up, because it is a perfect question. And how will this connect downtown to other corridors? Will there be some dedicated buildings, et cetera?
That's a great question. So we have started that process now. We have had some initial conversations with the Northwest Corridor team as they were working through their process to understand how our two corridors would come together. But there are several other corridors that are part of that Link Us network. So we are keeping in mind that we want to have that compatibility between the corridors. So as all of the corridors enter into the downtown, they can function together in a way that makes sense and really facilitates movement throughout the network. So in terms of phasing, East-West Corridor is going to be going first with Northwest Corridor, but we will be looking at how we can integrate those other corridors into the system as they progress forward.
Thank you so much. A bike lanes question. So what kind of bike lane plans do you have with this?
Similar answer to the pedestrian question. So that's definitely an important element of our plan and will be considered as part of this next phase happening over the next couple months, where we look at how we can improve the bike network, bike facilities throughout the corridor.
Thank you. And I believe those were our top questions. Again, if you have submitted a question and we didn't get a chance to address it right now, do not worry. We will be consolidating and reading these back to make sure that we can get that information to you. But for our next steps, we really appreciate you for tuning in, for participating, and for this great conversation. We want you to know that this is really only the beginning. Again, we'll have some co-create sessions where we can dive deeper into elements of our East-West Corridor plan. The Northwest Corridor is doing sessions of their own as well. And then you can always go to our Link Us website to find out more information, participate in surveys and the like. If you can go to, and yes, in that point of our co-create sessions, our schedule is here. Your vision and suggestions about reimagining your community come to life here. So February 23rd at 6 p.m., February 25th at noon and 6 p.m. You can visit linkuscolumbus.com for more information and to register. And we look forward to, and we hope to have you all participate in a part of that, and to really be able to focus on your community, but focus on transit along East-West Broad Columbus.
Yeah, and Chris, I want to chime in real quick. There's a lot of information on the website too. In addition to the East-West Corridor, the Northwest Corridor has an online open house right now with a survey that will be open, I think, until Friday. So check it out. And also, of course, there's a lot of East-West Corridor information on the website as well. So it's, I think it's being shared in the chat right now, www.linkuscolumbus.com. Go ahead, Chris.
No worries. And that's a perfect segue, because you can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and interact with us there as well. And again, linkuscolumbus.com/east-west. And for questions, for follow-up, for any suggestions that you may have as we go along this journey together, info@linkuscolumbus.com. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great evening.